Hey everybody, this is Bill. Welcome to the channel. Today we will be previewing the 2023 bowl schedule, talking a little bit about each of the games, predicting the winners, and gonna just give you some insight as to what's gonna go on in these upcoming bowl games that I know I truly enjoy. So join us as we go along, a short preview, give you the winners of the bowl games, and let's get started right now with the Myrtle Beach Bowl. This is going to be going on between Georgia Southern and Ohio. Now, Ohio is going to be without their quarterback who's moving on in the transfer portal, but they're a pretty good team. They did beat Iowa State earlier this season. Georgia Southern, they're losers of four in a row coming in the ball game at 6-6. We like the Bobcats here to win this even without their quarterback. Just think they're more sound, both lines of scrimmage and so forth. Wouldn't surprise us if Georgia Southern could come up and win this one. But in this ball game, we're going to go with the Bobcats from Ohio. Next up, we have the New Orleans Bowl with Jacksonville State and Louisiana. Southern contest there. Now listen, this was not a great year for Louisiana. But meanwhile, Jacksonville State is hungry. They came up in class. They got into a bowl game. They got something to prove. They've been giving people trouble from a lower division for years. Beat Florida State a couple years ago. Almost beat Auburn. Maybe I can't even remember, but they've been troublemakers for a while. We actually like Jacksonville State right here. We think they got something to prove, so we're taking them in the New Orleans Bowl. Next up is the Cure Bowl from Orlando, Florida. We have Miami of Ohio against Appalachian State. Now, this is a really good football game. I've been to the Cure Bowl a couple times. A lot of fun. Really good game. Now, Miami is better than you think. They did get clobbered by the Miami Hurricanes to start the season, but played very well throughout the Mid-America Conference. They're looking pretty good. Appalachian State, they got some big victories as well. This is going to be a really good football game. I would take Miami in the points here. I believe they're getting about 6.5, but we're going to go with Appalachian State to win a close football game. But this will be an entertaining one for you guys to keep your eyes on. Next up is the New Mexico Bowl, which finds New Mexico State and Fresno State. Now, New Mexico State, the thing that stands out about them is they just beat the crap out of Auburn at Auburn, and that has got to get your attention. Now, Fresno State, over the years been very good. They're not quite as good this year as they have been, but they're here. They are in a bowl game, and they're out west and looking good. But we're going to go with New Mexico State here. A hungry team coming off that big victory at Auburn, and they're looking to the future. So we like New Mexico State here in the New Mexico Bowl. Now, this is a night game, the L.A. Bowl. At 7:30 p.m., it's on ABC. We have UCLA and Boise State. Now, the Bruins, they're kind of in flux. Their great young quarterback, Dante Moore, he's in the portal, even though Coach Kelly is coming back. UCLA's got some decent line of scrimmage players, but they just came off getting bludgeoned in the last Pac-12 game of the season by Cal at home, and that is a stinger. Now, Boise played much better than expected this year. They've been kind of on a roll here late in the season. So Boise's a tough one, but I just got to believe UCLA, after that humbling loss, has more to prove, and they probably have a better overall talent record level here. So we're going to go with the Bruins in this one, but would not be surprised about Boise, but going to go ahead and take UCLA. This will be an entertaining ball game to watch, and we're going to do just that, watching it on ABC. Now we're going to close out Saturday, December 16th, with another excellent bowl game. Cal is going to be playing Texas Tech. Now, like many others, we had high hopes for Texas Tech coming into the season. They closed out 22 in strong fashion and had a veteran football team coming back, but they were beset by injuries, lost some close ones early, and they kind of fell apart. And since then, they've been up and down, have been the Red Raiders. Meanwhile, Cal impressed everybody this year into the middle of the pack of the very strong Pac-12, clobbered UCLA on the way out. Finishing up strongly. They've won 3 in a row. They did lose 4 in a row prior to that, but these were all against very good football teams, including a 50-49 loss to Southern Cal when they thought they had them beat. It has been a disappointing season for Texas Tech, but we look for them to bounce back after getting bludgeoned by the Texas Longhorns to close the season and beat a strong Cal football team. But another excellent football game that we will have our eyes all peeled on. Now, folks, before we continue with our bowl selections, please feel welcome to like us on Facebook over at The Color and Pageantry. We're not a very big channel, but we do post things during the off season. So if you're a college football fan, you're liable to to see some things that we post on there. So we want to invite you to do that if you so choose. That's over at the Color and Pageantry on Facebook. Now let's get on to previewing our bowl selections. Next up is the famous Toastery Bowl. This is coming up on ESPN Monday, December 18th at 2:30. It has Western Kentucky, the Hilltoppers, against Old Dominion. Now, Western Kentucky's been limping home here. Meanwhile, Old Dominion, they're a pretty good football team. They're looking pretty good here. They got some close losses, and they did beat Appalachian State. So we kind of think Old Dominion might be the pick here. We're gonna give them a shot here over the Red Raiders, who are limping home. So give us Old Dominion in this one, which we think will be a close football game. On Tuesday, December 19th, over on ESPN, we have the Frisco Bowl coming up at 9 p.m. Eastern. This has Marshall against Texas at San Antonio. Now, Marshall is not a good football team on the road. They really struggled on the road here, kind of got in the game here. They lost 6 of their last 8. Meanwhile, Texas, San Antonio, a lot of people expected them to be a top 25 team coming into 2023. They didn't quite make it there, but they have won 7 of their last 8 ball games. We expect them to win this one as well. So we have Texas, San Antonio defeating Marshall in the Frisco Bowl. On Thursday, December 21st at 8 p.m. on ESPN, we have the South Florida Bulls against the Syracuse Orange. Now, Syracuse has dismissed Coach Dino Babers, could not get over the hump there with Syracuse, so they're making a change. We like Dino Babers, wish him the best, but really not getting things done there at Syracuse. So they've moved on. And meanwhile, South Florida is here, and they have a young coaching staff that's very vibrant. And South Florida, remember, they played Alabama very close to end the season. They've had a good stretch of games here, South Florida. So we think they are the pick here in South Florida. They may have some fans down there to beat a Syracuse team that is in transition. So we like South Florida here. Although Syracuse is a decent team, but they're in transition. So we're going to go ahead and go with South Florida, the Bulls, in this contest. Tampa Town's a mighty fine place to be, and on Friday, December 22nd, we have the Gasparilla Bowl coming up at 6:30 p.m. on ESPN. This has nearby UCF playing Georgia Tech. Now, UCF is a good football team. They had a couple stumbles during the season, but they almost won at Oklahoma. They beat the dog crap out of Oklahoma State, and they have had some good games. John Rise Plumlee is an excellent quarterback, dual threat guy there for UCF. They can make some good things happen. But they're playing Georgia Tech, and folks, Georgia Tech really surprised the nation this year. They had some really strong outings. They did beat the Miami Hurricanes on a fluke down in South Florida, but they played the Georgia Bulldogs tough. This is a pretty decent football team, and we think Georgia Tech has their eyes on the future. So we think Georgia Tech is hungry in this ball game. We think UCF is a strong football team, but I think Georgia Tech is the pick in this ball game, and a close one. But we got the rambling wreck of Georgia Tech. Now, there are a slate of games on Saturday, December 23rd, as we approach Christmas Day, and they begin in Birmingham with the Birmingham Bowl, which finds the Duke Blue Devils against Troy. Now, Troy is much better than folks think. They are a very solid football team. We have been very impressed with them during the season. Duke as well is very good, but Duke has lost their quarterback, and now their head coach is off to Texas A&M. We're not quite sure what all Duke has going. They did play very well until they were beset by injuries, the Blue Devils. But with the flux of situation going on with Duke, we're going to actually go ahead and take Troy to win a very close football game here. But we have no disrespect toward Duke. We think they are a very good football team. Certainly they were when they were fully loaded. But going to see if Troy can't pull the upset here. So that's who we're taking, the Trojans. Next up, we have the Camellia Bowl at noon on ESPN, Arkansas State and Northern Illinois. Now, Northern Illinois has had some quarterbacking issues. They just have not been very strong offensively all season. But here they are, and they're 6-6. They've won 5 of their last 7, so they're getting things done better than they were earlier in the year. Now we look at Arkansas State, and they have been on fire. They've really been playing well. We like what we're seeing from them. They've won 3 of their last 5, and we're going to take them to continue things here, if offensively. But we think on the lines of scrimmage is where we're going to find an advantage for Northern Illinois. So we're going to take Northern Illinois in a close football game here. This is a very good bowl game. It should be very fun to watch. Contrasting styles, if you will. But we're just going to go ahead and take Northern Illinois here. Next up is the Armed Forces Bowl at 3:30 on ABC. James Madison, the Dukes, got in a bowl game, and they're going to face the Air Force Academy. Now, Air Force started out strong, but they've been limping home, losing 4 in a row. Meanwhile, James Madison has got something to prove. They made their way into a bowl game. They were about to get phased out, but they got in, and by golly, they want to show that they belong. So we think James Madison is going to win this football game, maybe 34-24 or something like that. We like the Air Force Academy, love their offensive scheme. Think they've kind of run out of gas though here. So we're taking James Madison, man. They're fired up. We got the Dukes. In the Potato Bowl at 3:30 on ESPN, we have Utah State and Georgia State. Now, Utah State, they're a fighting squad. They've been in some tough games, and they've had their ups and downs, but they're a really strong team there. And on the other side of the coin, Georgia State, they started out 4-0, but they have lost 5 in a row now. The wheels have kind of fallen off for Georgia State there. They've got some talented folks down there, so we would not fully discount them, but we're going to definitely go with Utah State in this ball game. Next up is the 68 Ventures Bowl. This is coming up at 7 p.m. on ESPN. The South Alabama Jaguars against Eastern Michigan. Now, Eastern Michigan, they do throw the ball around a little bit up there. They're not a bad football team. They can run it as well. But they have been poor on the road this year, and this will be a travel for them. So we are looking at South Alabama to win this football game. They're better than you think. And remember, they throttled Oklahoma State earlier in the season in Stillwater, 33-7. They have not quite had the year they wanted to, but South Alabama's ascending. They're on the way up. And we like the Jaguars to win this game by about 10 points. 7:30 on ABC, we find the Las Vegas Bowl. This has the Northwestern Wildcats against the Utah Utes. Now, folks, Northwestern, what a pleasant surprise. No one expected anything out of them, including myself. I didn't think they'd be worth a doggone. But, buddy, did they regroup and played some outstanding football down the stretch. They beat some good teams. So Northwestern, hats off to the Wildcat bunch over there, responding after their coach Fitzpatrick got knocked out in that scandal earlier in the season. They just responded wonderfully. So here they are, a nice reward, the Las Vegas Bowl. They're going to play Utah. Utah had the whole season kind of taken away from them with their great quarterback Cam Rising unable to play. But Utah is very strong defensively, very strong on the line of scrimmage, and they're a doggone good football team. Really rough schedule. We like the Utes in this ball game, but hats off to Northwestern. At 10:30, it's almost going to be Pac-12 after dark, but we have the Hawaii Bowl, and we find San Jose State up against Coastal Carolina. Now, San Jose State has won 6 in a row, and Coastal Carolina, their injured quarterback Grayson McCall, he's in the portal. He's going to be gone. They have lost their last 2 ball games. These were quality losses, if you will, but nonetheless, there does appear to be some flux going on with Coastal Carolina. We think San Jose State has got their edge on 6 games in a row, though. So we are going to go with San Jose State to win a Hawaii Bowl. A relive, maybe, of a little Pac-12 after dark. I mean, it's going to get kicked off at 10:30. We'll be there. After Christmas on Tuesday, December 26th, we have the Quick Lane Bowl at 2 p.m. on ESPN. That's got Bowling Green, the Falcons, against the Minnesota Golden Gophers. Now, Minnesota did not have the season that we thought that they might. Very poor. They've lost 4 in a row and 5 of their last 7. Don't know what's going on with P.J. Fleck and the group over there. They do have some talent, but Minnesota limping home. Bowling Green is a pretty good football team over there in their conference. They did beat Georgia Tech earlier in the season. That was a big victory for them. So they might have more to prove here, but man, we just got to believe Minnesota's going to win this football game. There's just too much talent over there, and P.J. Fleck, he can't get the boat rowing out into the empty waters out there. I mean, he's going to have to get that thing back to the dock and get it repaired. So we got to believe Minnesota's going to win this ball game against Bowling Green there in Detroit in the Quick Lane Bowl. Texas State is going to hook up with Rice in the First Responder Bowl, 5:30 p.m. on ESPN. And man, Texas State, they are moving the football well. They played well this season. But Rice can move it too. They can throw it pretty well. You know, Luke McCaffrey is one of the top receivers in the country. The transfer from Nebraska who was playing quarterback for the Huskers, he's really lighting it up on the receiving end. So we expect some offensive showcase here, but we think Texas State is the way to go here over the Rice Owls in this First Responder Bowl. In the Guaranteed Rate Bowl, trying to get a good mortgage rate for you, at 9 p.m. on ESPN, we have the Kansas Jayhawks and the UNLV running Rebels. But we're not playing basketball, folks. We're playing football. Now, UNLV's had a really good year, but we like the Kansas Jayhawks. They've got some talent on that team. They're hungry, and one thing we do know with Coach Leipold, they are very well coached. So we're going to go with the Jayhawks here. Rock Talk Jayhawk, filling the net at the Guaranteed Rate Bowl. Tulane is going to face Virginia Tech in the Military Bowl on Wednesday, December 27th at 2 o'clock in the afternoon on ESPN. Now, we really like the job that's been done by Brent Pry over at Virginia Tech this year. They really responded strongly, played some daggum good football. Virginia Tech looks like they're ascending. Meanwhile, Tulane is a very good football team. We understand this. 2 losses this year. They're both close, one of them to Ole Miss. And, of course, Tulane beat Southern Cal in the Goodyear Cotton Bowl last year. Listen, Tulane's a very good football team. We like the direction of the Hokies there in Blacksburg, but right here we think Tulane is too much for the Hokies. We got the Tulane Green Wave. The Duke's Mayo Bowl comes on at 5:30 on ESPN from Charlotte, North Carolina. This is an interesting football game here, if I may say so. The University of North Carolina Tar Heels, led by their fine quarterback Drake May, are up against Neil Brown and the West Virginia Mountaineers, who had a fantastic season. You have really got to be impressed with the Mounties this year. We think North Carolina has talent, but they are a bit sporadic under Coach Mack Brown. We're not quite sure what we're going to get with them. And I think West Virginia is high flying. They are ready to rock and roll. The Mountaineers, they got something to prove. I like West Virginia in this ball game. It's going to be an entertaining one, and I'm not going to miss a snap of it. Next up is the Holiday Bowl in San Diego. This is going to be on Fox. We have the Louisville Cardinal and the Southern California Trojans. Now, Southern Cal was in everybody's top 10, it seems like, to kick the season off. They've got a tremendous amount of talent all over the place. They brought in some defensive help, some great players. It just did not materialize into the kind of year that they hoped it would. Their quarterback, the great one, Caleb Williams, former Heisman Trophy winner, he is skipping the ball game. It looks like USC is going to be getting ready for next year. Meanwhile, Jeff Brom and the Louisville Cardinal had an outstanding season. No one expected Jeff Brom to get things going that fast with the Cards, but he did, and they have something to prove. They are wanting everyone to know that they're going to be a force into the future, and we think they're going to demonstrate that to the nation once again here in the Holiday Bowl against Southern California. Give us Jeff Brom and the Cardinals. The Texas Bowl is going to find Oklahoma State against the Texas A&M Aggies. Now, Oklahoma State made the Big 12 championship game somehow. I don't know. But they're not all that great. But they did play well enough down the stretch to get themselves into that ball game. They got killed by Texas there in the Big 12 championship game. They're going up against Texas A&M. Now, there's a ton of talent on Texas A&M. Nobody disappointed like Texas A&M. So they're not going to let that sit. They've gotten a new coaching staff coming in there. All a bunch of players with a lot to prove. Those that are sticking around, we look for Texas A&M to be trying to set the tone for next year in this ball game, and we like Texas A&M to beat Oklahoma State big in the Texas Bowl. Thursday, December 28th at 11 a.m. in Fenway, we find number 24 SMU against Boston College. Now listen, Boston College is a better football team than you think they are. They can cause trouble for many of people under Coach Jeff Flaley there. They're very good. Made the bowl game. Good for them. They're playing Southern Methodist. Southern Methodist is a very good football team. They've got an offensive skill set over there that is very impressive. We think Boston College can give them fits, but we are taking Southern Methodist to win this football game there in Fenway Park. The Pinstripe Bowl comes at us from the Bronx at 2:15 p.m. on ESPN. We got the Miami Hurricanes against Rutgers. Now, Rutgers, again, they're like Boston College, man. They're better than you think they are. They've got some people, and Greg Schiano getting an extension on his contract. So Rutgers is going to be ready to go. But man, there's too much talent on Miami. Now, I'm not sure who's playing quarterback for the Hurricanes, but man, if they're going to go up there and get beat by Rutgers, it's just going to be a damning indictment on Miami. There's too much talent over there. If they can't get it together to get by Rutgers, even though they're up in the Rutgers area of the country, the Miami Hurricanes really kind of need to win this game, and we think they will. The Pop-Tarts Bowl in Orlando, Florida is going to be a great one. 5:45 on ESPN. North Carolina State against Kansas State. Both of these are quality top 20 football teams. Kansas State has had some big victories. They've had a couple losses that are just kind of head scratchers, but they're a good football team. Not quite sure about their quarterback situation either. Will Howard from Kansas State is in the portal. Meanwhile, North Carolina State kind of surprised a lot of folks this year under Coach Dave Doeren, and they had a great year. They really did. And they're way better than a lot of people think that they are, and we think they're going to show that here in the Pop-Tarts Bowl. I think a lot of the NC State faithful will be happy to get down to Orlando for that. They haven't been to a bowl like this in a while. So we look for NC State to look impressive in Orlando at the Pop-Tarts Bowl. We're going to close out Thursday, December 28th in San Antonio at the Alamo Bowl. Kickoff 9:15 Eastern. Oklahoma against Arizona. Now, few teams have been ravaged in the portal since the close of the season like the Oklahoma Sooners have. And we'll start with their great quarterback, Dillon Gabriel. He's gone. He's going to go off to Oregon. They've lost people on the offensive line. They've lost receivers. They've lost running. They have just lost a ton of people. We're not even sure who's going to be playing for Oklahoma. Meanwhile, Arizona, probably the number one surprise in the country this year. They started whipping people down the stretch. I'm telling you right now, they really impressed, and I think they're not done yet. They have something else to prove. They want to get bigger and better for next year. They're moving to the Big 12. They want to send a message. Arizona, we like them to win this ball game easily. Friday, December 29th, we're going to kick it off at noon with the Gator Bowl. Now, the Gator Bowl, they've been having games after the first of the year, we don't even know where they're playing anymore, but it's out of Jacksonville, Florida. It's a very fun game to go to if you ever get the chance. I've been to it many times. Love the Gator Bowl. Noon, ESPN. Clemson against Kentucky. What an interesting matchup this is. Now, Kentucky, we think highly of their program and Coach Mark Stoops. Very solid, very stable. They can run the football. Kentucky, they're a good team out of the SEC. They did dump Louisville at the end of the season. That was an impressive win for the Wildcats. Meanwhile, Clemson started out terrible. And people had Clemson dead and buried, and I'm going to tell you right now, Dabo Swinney and the group, they're not dead and buried. In fact, they're quite mad about every one of y'all thinking that they were. So they've been running it down the stretch. Big victory over Notre Dame, dumped South Carolina, and they're going to beat Kentucky pretty easily down there in Jacksonville. We like the Clemson Tigers, sending a message for 2024 by beating Kentucky in Jacksonville on the banks of the St. Johns River. The Tony the Tiger Sun Bowl, 2 p.m. CBS, always one of our favorite games. This has Oregon State against Notre Dame. Now, if this game were played during the season, we would have taken Oregon State. We think they're a very good football team, but their coach has run off. He's now going to Michigan State, and a lot of players have left Oregon State, so we don't think they're the same team that they were. Meanwhile, Notre Dame is stable. They've got things going on, the Fighting Irish, so we look for it to be a tough game, but we think with the departures from Oregon State that Notre Dame will win the Sun Bowl from El Paso. The Liberty Bowl comes on at 3:30 with the Iowa State Cyclones, who under Coach Matt Campbell really exceeded expectations this year. They had a fine season. Didn't think they were going to do much this year, but they sure did. And they're going up against the Memphis Tigers. Now, this is an underrated football team as well. They have some losses, 3 of them this year, but they've all been close losses against some good football teams. The Memphis Tigers, they're good. This is going to be in their neck of the woods, the Liberty Bowl in Memphis. It's right there for the Tigers. We like the Tigers to beat the surprising Cyclones in this one. That's going to be a good football game. We're going to watch it. Hope you will too, but we like Memphis. The Goodyear Cotton Bowl at 8 p.m. has Ohio State against Missouri. Now, Ohio State disappointing in their loss to Michigan at the end of the year, but they've had a bunch of departures from the transfer portal after the season, including their great quarterback, Kyle McCord and their outstanding receiver Julian Fleming, among others. So we're not quite sure how Ohio State's going to look. Meanwhile, they're playing Missouri under Coach Eli Drinkwitz, and they have exceeded expectations and have had a fine year. It's carrying over to recruiting in the portal as well. So Missouri is looking to the future, and they want to establish themselves as somebody to behold. So we like the Tigers over the depleted Buckeyes. And that's a surprising situation there, but that's what we're seeing. We like Mizzou. On Saturday, December 30th, we have the Peach Bowl from Atlanta, Georgia on at noon on ESPN. This has number 10 Penn State against number 11 Ole Miss. Now, Penn State, as we've said, they're a good football team. They could not get past the Ohio State-Michigan hump. They've got a great running back in Nicholas Singleton. They've got some players on the defensive side of the ballgame that are very impressive. But, folks, Ole Miss has 2 quality losses to Georgia and Alabama, and they do have a victory over LSU. Ole Miss is firing on some cylinders under Lane Kiffin here, and we think that they want to make a statement about the future of Ole Miss football with Lane Kiffin. So we look for Ole Miss to win this football game going away. That's the Peach Bowl, noon, from Atlanta, Georgia. Ole Miss, your winner. At 2 p.m. from Nashville, Tennessee, we have an intriguing matchup in the Music City Bowl over on ABC. Auburn and Maryland. Now, Auburn almost beat Alabama, but this is coming off them being drubbed by New Mexico State. It's been an up and down year for Auburn. They've shown some flashes. They're not quite there yet under Hugh Freeze. Meanwhile, Maryland had a pretty decent season under Coach Loxley and Tua Tagovailoa's brother Talia, and they did some fine things. But they're not quite over the hump yet either. So this is a very intriguing game, an SEC-ACC matchup. Looks like Auburn might be the slightly better pick here. I think they're just more physical in their presence on the offensive and defensive lines. But this could go either way. Tagovailoa could heat up. Auburn, Maryland, very interesting game. We'd have to probably go with the Tigers in this one if push came to shove. But it's going to be a fun one to watch, and we'll be doing just that. Next up is the Orange Bowl at 4 p.m. on ESPN, live from Miami Gardens, Florida, the Florida State Seminoles and the Georgia Bulldogs. Now, these two teams you would think would be in the playoff. I mean, Florida State's undefeated, ACC champions. They got snubbed. They're not in the college football invitational. And the Georgia Bulldogs fell to Alabama in Atlanta, losing a 29-game winning streak. They almost had Alabama, but they did lose it. Now, these are 2 fine football teams. We really don't know who's playing. Is Brock Bowers playing? I don't know. Now, we do know Florida State has some people not playing, and that's going to include Jordan Travis, their fantastic quarterback. He's out. They've had people go pro. They've had the portal hit them. Florida State, you would think, would be more motivated to do well in this game, and they are going to be fine. But this is the Georgia Bulldogs, folks, and as of now, with the people I think are playing for Georgia, going to have to give a slight edge to the Bulldogs. If Florida State was at full strength and Georgia was at full strength, I'm picking the Seminoles. But I'm not doing that now. Too many losses for the Seminoles, and Georgia has some motivation. Looks like more people are playing for them than are playing for Florida State. It will be a heavy Florida State crowd down there in Miami. A fun game to watch. I'll be there. But we're going to have to go with the Dogs in this ballgame. Out in Arizona, we have the Arizona Bowl. This is going to be on the CW network. Toledo against Wyoming. Now, Toledo had a decent year. They fell at Illinois early. They were good in the MAC, and Toledo's looking good. But their quarterback has hit the portal, looking for bigger and better things. He's a fine football player. He's going to end up somewhere helping somebody big time. Watch for that kid. Wyoming had a decent season under Craig Bohl. He's retiring. The Cowboys are physical. Guess what? They want to send him out a big-time winner, Craig Bohl, and they're going to do it. We got the Cowboys in the Arizona Bowl, and that's over on the CW, 4:30. Monday, January 1st, starts us off with the ReliaQuest Bowl on ESPN2. We have LSU against Wisconsin. Now, Wisconsin did not have the year that they anticipated having under new coach Luke Fickell. They did have some ups and downs. Wisconsin from the Big Ten inching into this ballgame. LSU behind Heisman Trophy winner Jaden Daniels finished up third in the SEC West there. But they're a fantastic football team. We know the kind of talent LSU had. Now, they throttled Purdue in the Citrus Bowl this year. I don't think it's going to be that bad, but we look for LSU, the Tigers, big over the Badgers. The Florida Citrus Bowl in downtown Orlando is on ABC at noon. That has Iowa against Tennessee. Now, we all know Iowa's defense is elite, and they continue to be so. Even though their top corner, Cooper DeJean, is out of the ball game. He was injured late in the year and out for the season. He's a fine football player. Tennessee, meanwhile, has been erratic. They've looked good on occasion. They've looked terrible on occasion. They got killed at Florida early in the season. They've just been up and down. You got to believe Tennessee can muster enough offense against this defense to hold Iowa's anemic offense from getting too much on the board themselves. So we like Tennessee to win this game, but Iowa, man, they can do it. They play better in these bowl games than you think, pretty much all the time. So Iowa could definitely win it, but man, we're going to have to go with the Vols in this one. The Fiesta Bowl comes at us at noon as well on ESPN. This has Oregon against Liberty. Liberty is that non-Power 5 team that got in, and they had a great season. But, folks, they are no match for Oregon. Now, if Oregon is not motivated, that opens a door up. But we think Dan Lanning will have the Ducks ready to play. There's competition inside the Oregon Duck football team for positions, and guys don't want to go out there and put bad-looking stuff on film. So Oregon, we think, is going to be ready to go, and they're going to absolutely throttle Liberty in the Fiesta Bowl. And now we'll get over to the College Football Invitational. First, the Rose Bowl at 5 p.m. on ESPN. This has Michigan against Alabama. Now, both of these are fine football teams. We think Alabama's been more tested in the SEC than Michigan has been in the Big Ten. But where we see Alabama not having the advantage you might think is at the lines of scrimmage. Now, Michigan's got some fine people there, even though they lost one of their offensive starters who was an All-America candidate player in Minter. But we like Michigan here. Now, Michigan's quarterback is a lot better than you think, and Alabama's quarterback has grown immensely during this season. This is going to be a fantastic football game. Just don't think Alabama can push Michigan around enough to maybe sneak by again. They are getting by some of these teams. Like they did Auburn and they did Arkansas, and just not going to be able to do that with Michigan. We just think this time Michigan is the way to go here. And then over at the Sugar Bowl at 8:45, also on ESPN, we have number 2 Washington against number 3 Texas. Now, we've liked the Huskies all season behind Michael Penix Jr. They've got an outstanding receiver core. They're also much better than you think in the trenches. Texas, the big victory over Alabama earlier in the season on the road, 10 points. Now, they did stumble against Oklahoma in the Red River rivalry, and Oklahoma's a decent football team, so that's nothing to shake your head at. But Texas is here. They finally broke through. They're looking good, but we think Washington is too much for the Longhorns, and we look for the Washington Huskies to win. So our projection is that Michigan will be meeting up with Washington to determine the national champion. We will have a preview for that game, ahead of that game. But we're going to ride these bowl games through and see what happens. But that's our picks, folks, for all the bowl games. And once again, Michigan against Washington in the final. That's how we see it. Drop us some comments and let us know what you think. Be happy to hear your commentary on any of our picks. Love to know what you're thinking. And we hope you all have a wonderful holiday season. Merry Christmas to you all. And we will see you toward the end of the season as we preview the game. We're also going to have you look out for our All-American Team video, which we'll have out in a week or two. Alrighty, folks, please take care. Thank you so much for watching. We'll talk to you next time.